I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and last week's NATO summit returned with a pledge to increase defense spending to 5%, only it's not really 5%, it's 3.5%, and then they want to add another 1.5% of GDP into all kinds of things that are defense adjacent, which are things like large infrastructure projects, ports, airports, critical mineral mines, things like that, which are essentially creative accounting. But we should still be having more of a conversation about that 3.5% because it's really important. Part of that is how we plan as an alliance to sustain that amount of spending, because that's going to be incredibly difficult moving forward. Some countries have reached their 2% by front-loading a bunch of capital costs, for example, of F-35s, but it's the sustaining that 2% spending that's going to be a challenge, and now to ramp that up to 3.5 is going to be a lot more. Canada's going to face a similar problem, and we also have to have a conversation about what we're willing to sacrifice in order to reach that level of defense spending, because that's going to be one of the single biggest line items in the federal budget sooner than later. The other thing that we should be having a conversation about is more than just about these percentages, because it's a really poor metric, but rather how, as an alliance, NATO is judging the contributions that its allies make. And that's a question that we don't really talk about enough, considering that there are members of the alliance who do reach their 2% spending target, but have not and do not contribute to operations. And that's kind of a problem when you're in a defensive alliance like this, is that you want members to be contributing to operations, not just spending domestically on their national defense when they're not contributing to the defense of others. So that's a problem that we're not discussing. The other thing that we need to have a serious conversation about is capability. Now, it wasn't really explicitly stated at this particular summit because a lot of it was about appeasing Trump, but we all need to have a conversation about what happens when America decides to withdraw from Europe, and that is likely to happen sooner than later. And we need to have a conversation about what kind of capabilities NATO as an alliance would be missing without Americans contributing to that. And I think that's an important conversation that we should have in light of these conversations about spending, rather than just setting a spending goal, rather a capability goal that all members need to be able to contribute toward. And I think that's a conversation that's much more nuanced and a lot more fair to certain members, particularly when you have a GDP number, which makes it easy for countries with a smaller denominator to reach their goals and countries with a larger denominator much harder. So in the coming weeks, coming months, these are things we should be talking about, particularly in Canada, when this comes up for discussion. And we need to have a serious look at not just our spending, but what we're able to contribute and the capabilities that we bring to the table. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.